Hey guys, welcome to the Ramsey Paul Show. We're back to reviewing the top news items of the day. And today is October 9th, a Thursday, a beautiful day in the Ozarks. It's like in the low 70s. The leaves are starting to turn, low humidity. If you ever get a chance to visit the Ozarks, do it in the fall. It's just gorgeous. Spring is pretty too, but we get a lot more rain. Fall is just great. All right, we have a lot of news stories to go over, and obviously the top story that broke yesterday is there could potentially be peace in Gaza ever since Hamas attacked a couple of years ago on October 7th. Then Israel invaded, and there's been a lot of ethnic cleansing. The UN labeled it a genocide. It's been very, very horrible. What started it is Hamas. They did a raid into Israel and they took a bunch of hostages as a terrorist act. And the reason they took these hostages is they wanted some prisoners released from Israeli jails. And then that started the whole war conflict. And it's been a bloody mess. Tens of thousands of people been murdered. Horrible, horrible situation. And it looks like we have a tentative peace plan. Now, I have to be honest, I'm of the age I this is like deja vu over and over and over. There's fighting in the Middle East. We, as the United States, get involved with it because of Israel, of course. Israel has so much control over our country. And there's the peace plan. I think Jimmy Carter had a peace plan. Everyone has the peace plan. And then the peace plan is violated. It's just the way it goes. So, excuse me for being a little cynical. I'm skeptical if this peace plan will last long term. I think there's another reason for this plan, the reason Israel agreed to it, and we'll get into that. But maybe. I don't want to be too cynical because peace is always better than war. So maybe this will last. If that happens, kudos on Trump. And I know Trump, one of his driving goals, for whatever reason, is really interesting. He really wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I think this is important to him in his life. It's not like he gets money out of it, but I think this will help, in his mind, show him as being a peace president and a great man. Uh, he's talked about that. He wanted to solve the Ukraine Russian war. Remember, he was going to solve that on one day, my first day in office. Well, it was a lot more complex than he thought. Then he got deeper and deeper into it. The negotiations with Zelensky and Putin, met Putin in Alaska. And I don't think we're anywhere closer to a peace settlement in Ukraine. It's being decided on the battlefield. But Israel and Gaza, he's also worked on that, and that's been very difficult for different reasons. But they announced yesterday phase one. There's supposed to be two phases of this peace plan. We're in phase one. By this weekend, Hamas is supposed to release all their hostages, which is a good thing. Obviously, taking hostages is a terrorist act. It's not the way to do business is by taking civilians hostage. So, as much criticism I have of Israel frequently, they did have a right to go after Hamas. I'm not a fan of Hamas. I'm not going to wave their flag. They are a terrorist organization, but they're supposed to release the Jewish prisoners this weekend, hostages, and then Israel they promised to release some Hamas prisoners. So this was basically Hamas's original goal of the raid on October 7th was to take Israeli hostages in exchange for Israel releasing their prisoners. So after all this bloody fighting, it looks like we're finally getting to that point. And again, there's supposed to be a ceasefire come this weekend, although there's no one to enforce the ceasefire yet. And then Israel is supposed to withdraw from some of Gaza, not all of Gaza. So that's phase one. So hopefully we'll have a ceasefire by this weekend. And hopefully Israel will withdraw from a lot of the territory of the Gaza. Now, phase two, Hamas is supposed to disarm. which they're not going to do. But we're now negotiating phase 2 of the peace deal. And there's supposed to be a peace force in Gaza to enforce the ceasefire. And who it will be, I don't know. There's been talk about Egypt. Some people want the United States, which I oppose. I think a lot of Palestinians want the United States because they fear that Israel, and Israel doesn't abide by treaties very well, that they will just reinvade, they will ignore the ceasefire, or they'll say, oh, Hamas didn't live up to their bargain, and then they will invade again. A very likely possibility. And then the people that are being paid off by Israel, like Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, they'll cheerlead forever for what Israel does. So the idea was that if there's U.S. troops, then that's going to make it harder for Israel to invade Gaza because they could kill American troops. But I don't know if that'd make a difference, really, because Tom Cotton, Lindsey Graham, and Ted Cruz would literally support Israel over America. And I'm not saying that in hyperbole. I really do believe that. They're totally owned. But we'll see what happens there. Now, some hardliners in Israel are upset about this deal because, again, they're releasing some Hamas prisoners. And, their goal was to ethnically cleanse Gaza and expand Israel. And it looks like that's not going to happen, at least yet. And there's some hardliners in Hamas that want to keep fighting. And I don't think Hamas is going to disarm. So there's still a lot of tensions there. So the question is, what really was the impetus for this to happen now? And I don't want to be black-pilled, but I think this has more to do with an upcoming war with Iran. The United States have been sending ships into the Mediterranean, fighter jets over there to the Middle East. It looks like we're going to have phase 2 with Iran. I hope not, but I can see that happening. And I could see Trump telling Netanyahu, like, hey, we're going to fight a war with Iran. Iran's the real problem. If we take care of Iran, we don't have to worry about Hamas. So let's just have a temporary peace with Hamas and we'll go after Iran. Now, that's a simplification. And I think a lot of the neocons or even the politicians don't understand all the geopolitical realities, because in reality, Hamas is not controlled by Iran. In fact, during the Syrian civil war that happened, it was a bloody war, Hamas and Iran, they were on opposite sides. So they're loosely aligned, but not exactly. Hamas does its own thing. But I think the thinking was with the neocons that seem to be more in control of the Trump administration now, sadly. And a lot of the Israelis are like, okay, we're going to fight a war with Iran. We don't need to be in a two-front war, right? So we're having a fight with Hamas and Iran at the same time. I think Israel's thinking, all right, we'll have a temporary peace with Hamas. We'll fight Iran. Well, we, meaning the United States, will fight Iran. And once Iran is defeated, we do a coup there and we put a puppet of the United States government or the Israeli government in charge of Iran. Then we will violate the ceasefire agreement in Gaza and we'll continue with our ethnic cleansing. And we know the people, our politicians that we own in Washington, like Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, they will be fine with that. So I have a feeling that's what's driving it. It's almost signaling that we could be headed for a war with Iran. I hope not, but I can see that happening. I know the MAGA base doesn't want it, but again, the Israeli lobby is extremely powerful in the United States. And Trump seems to think he likes easy answers, like ending the war in Ukraine on day one. I think Trump has in his mind that we could take out Iran, they'll be easy to topple, and then everything is cleared up. We have peace in the Middle East, and Trump will be a hero. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. Iran is fairly strong. They're not weak like Iraq. I'm not saying Iran is a superpower like Russia or China, but they're not super weak. And I don't think bombing will be enough to overthrow the regime in Iran. We would have to have boots on the ground, which there's no political will to have. But nevertheless, I think that is the goal. There's going to be a bombing campaign in the hopes that there's regime change. And then Israel, after Iran's taken care of, can violate the ceasefire in Gaza, because Israel's not giving up on Gaza. They see that as a messianic prophecy that God gave them that land. So they're not going to give up on that. At least the hardliners are not. So I look at this as a temporary peace in Gaza. Maybe I'm a little cynical, but that's how I see it. Now, to kind of show how powerful the Israeli lobby is, got another clip here. And this was on Timcast. This was Matt Gaetz. And he was talking about when he was a congressman, how powerful AIPAC is. AIPAC is a Israeli lobby. Officially, it's American citizens, but they're tied into Israel. So let's listen to this.
Initially, I resented the fact that there was no appreciation for nuance. Like if you asked any questions about any decision of the Israeli government in any place regarding settlements, regarding Gaza, whatever, you were like, you had deviated from the script. And I just, in any policy area, I had resentment over that.
And that's the thing with Israel. They expect you to be 100% loyal to them, not America. And they're okay with you being loyal to America as long as it doesn't conflict with their ethno state. And any deviation, they're going to call you a vicious Jew hater and try to destroy you. They'll call you anti-Semitic. Even if you support Israel as a nation, like myself personally, I have no problems with the Jewish people having a homeland. I think I support nationalism, so I support that. And many things that Israelis do, I like the model, having an ethno state like they do. I like how they protect their borders. I don't have a problem with them going after Hamas. Again, I look at Hamas as a terrorist organization. I don't blame them that they don't want a bunch of Africans or Muslims in their country. I can understand that. But I resent that they control our country and they have a double standard. For our country, they demand that we take all these third world refugees, and we can't have nationalism. It's only for them.
And then I saw the way the AIPAC worked, and that was weird for like a country lawyer like me. I remember my first AIPAC reception, and like your fundraiser tells you have to go, and your chief of staff tells you have to go, your committee chairman all tell you have to go, and you get there and you wear this name badge, and I remember there's a QR code on it. And what we were supposed to do was go talk to donors, and then if they liked you, they scanned your QR code to make a donation. Like,
it's like a slave auction. How humiliating, right? We're supposed to be a great power, and we have to kowtow to Israel, the AIPAC, and you wear around yourself a QR code. And so if you say enough nice things, maybe they'll throw you some shekels.
On the spot. And so can you just imagine how demoralizing that is to like be told that your job for the next several hours to go chat people up, hoping they would scan you like a can of tomato soup on the way out of the meeting.
I mean, it's literally purchasing.
Right. And so I saw that and I was like, wow, that is so.
Yeah, this is really fucked up. Our politicians are literally owned by Israel. And there should be a law against this. I think AIPAC should be banned, and not just AIPAC. Any foreign influence group should not be allowed in our democracy. Just shouldn't. And so I'm not picking on Israel per se. They just have the strongest lobby, but no country, China or Russia, I don't care who it is, there should not be foreign lobbies buying our politicians. And no, I'm not going to fall for the loophole. And, actually, they're not a foreign lobby. They're American citizens. Yeah, bullshit. We see through that, right? So it'd be like a bunch of Chinese people that have U.S. citizenship, but they have their little Chinese lobby. And they always want you to do what the Chinese government does. I mean, you could say, oh, it's technically not a foreign lobby. Yeah, fuck off. And that's the way AIPAC is. I mean, I'm not playing those games. It's a foreign lobby. So that should be banned. And politicians, really, I think should be arrested that got money from AIPAC or foreign lobbies. That's really treason. And I'm talking just top of my head, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Tom Cotton. And I don't care how base they are about other issues. This is a prime issue. If you have to literally whore yourself where they put a name tag around you with a QR code and they purchase you with a scanner, again, it's like a fucking slave auction.
Freaking weird. And then, I was in Israel I went multiple times, and I did not like the fact that I found someone in my room rooting around in my stuff that should not have been there at the King David Hotel when I came back to my room when
King David Hotel, by the way, that's where the Zionist terrorists, they were terrorists. They set off a bomb against the British, killed some people.
no one was expecting me to be back in my room. And I just felt,
Presumably Israeli law
well, I don't know
enforcement.
who it was. I just thought, like, this is weird. All of these things combined are odd. And then the policy outgrowth seems to be an obsession about the Middle East that has not served my generation well.
Yeah, or any generation will. And people are questioning it. They're questioning, why do we have to put Israel first? Why do we have to get involved with this war between Israel and Hamas? Why do we have to fight probably another war for Israel, Iran? Iran is not a threat to America. They're halfway around the world. They're happy to deal with us peacefully, sell oil to us. It's because of Israel. And it's because our politicians are sold like slaves. It's just really, really pathetic. And we're seeing more and more of this battle, really for the soul of the nation going on between people that think we should put Israel first or America first. And this guy, simply because U.S. is going through a real identity crisis. I don't think he's an American, but Eric Garrison, he posted all this Israeli flag, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, God bless her, she posted the American flag. Again, I have nothing against Israel, but the Israeli flag belongs in Israel, not in America. I'm an American. I'm a Southerner. I have a Confederate battle flag. I have the United States flag. I don't fly a Scottish flag. I have a Scottish flag, but that's not my main loyalty. So it's a real crazy how that happens. And it's a lot of it, and I brought up again, was based on this heresy called Christian Zionism that didn't exist before the early 20th century. And here's Dinesh D'Souza again. He puts Israel first. Satan hates the Jews because they're God's original chosen people. And he hates Christians because we are, as the Bible tells us, spiritual Israelites engrafted into God's covenant. No, it's a new covenant. We're not engrafted into it. This is a new covenant. And Jews that fail to accept the new covenant, they are no longer his people. The people is quite clear in the New Testament, as I replied to Dinesh down here, are anyone that believes in Christ, if you're a Christian. And so, and I've explained this in all the Bible verses, but again, this is a weird heresy that somehow people, this nation of Israel, which rejects Jesus Christ and hates Jesus Christ, they hate him. In the Talmud, he's like boiling in shit or something. And we are supposed to, this is God's chosen people. It isn't, all right? The Jewish people were God's chosen people to bring about the Messiah, but those that reject the Messiah are no longer God's chosen people. And the Apostle Paul and Peter were very clear with that point. But because, sadly, of that Christian heresy that's very recent, again, it didn't exist until the late 19th century, we still have that issue. All right, let's see. In the United States, we have our Civil War II still going on, at least a precursor to it. And there's this crazy, a man with 200 explosives and a leftist manifesto arrested outside a Supreme Court event. So what happened, these conservative judges, they were at a Catholic mass to pray, and this leftist, thank God it didn't happen. Just imagine if it happened. He was trying to murder half the Supreme Court in a church. And this is where we are with left-wing terrorism now in the United States, is getting more and more violent. Of course, I'm sure the ADL and SPLC won't list that as a left-wing terrorist attack. They'll ignore it for their statistics. Speaking of terrorist attacks, remember last year we had the big fire in California? And a lot of us were saying, well, this is what Antifa does a lot. They're big on setting arson and fires because they want to burn down the system, even if it kills a lot of people and just destroys homes, kills the environment. They don't give a shit. Well, we got some evidence now. They arrested the man who is accused of starting these fires. So let's take a look.
Good morning. My name is Kenny Cooper. I'm the special agent in charge of ATF's Los Angeles Field Division. Today marks a significant moment in a long road to justice for our community. After more than 8 months of tireless, meticulous work, I stand here with our partners, proud to announce an arrest in connection to the devastating Palisade fires that claimed lives, destroyed homes, and shook this community to its core.
The guy that did this, he's committed mass murder. He should be executed if found guilty.
Jonathan Rindernesh, age 29, residing in Melbourne, Florida, was taken into federal custody by ATF special agents, a Los Angeles City Fire Department investigator, and a Los Angeles police detective. This partnership and arrest is significant in the three agencies working hand in glove to get this investigation to where it is.
And by the way, when this happened, remember all the people on the left, see, this proves it's climate change. How can you ignorant Republicans not believe in climate change? We never had fires like this before. And it was one of their own, a shit lib, that set the fire. It had nothing to do with climate change. It was arson.
Rinderneck, as the U.S. Attorney mentioned, is charged under Title 18-844F, malicious destruction by means of a fire of real property owned by an organization receiving federal financial assistance. I know this community has endured a long wait for answers. Families have carried an unmanageable grief, and an entire community has been left to heal while living with questions. Although we cannot share every detail of this investigation, it is still an active investigation, and judicial proceedings remain ahead. I can tell you this: from day one, ATF and our partners have been relentless. We made a promise to find answers, and we have kept that promise. To give you a sense of the work, I want to highlight the extraordinary level.
So that's they did get a suspect that was part of it. And let's see here. And it turned out people did an investigation with it. And let's see here. Here it is. Some information about the suspect. Just to give you some of his background. It's always get it, because otherwise the ADLS people say, oh, a right-wing terrorist. No, Jonathan Rinderknecht is a Joe Biden presidential donor. So he did support the Democrats. This looks like another example of left-wing terrorism, although at this time we don't know if he was involved with Antifa or not, or just influenced by him. But that is the situation. So we got to arrest there, and I think that is a good thing. All right. The government shutdown, I think, enters day 9. And at this point, there was 2 issues that people are fighting about. The White House is blaming the shutdown on the Democrats because they say the Democrats want to fund illegal aliens' health care. And the Democrats say that's a lie. Illegal aliens are not on Medicaid. That's illegal for them to be on Medicaid, or although some states have Medicaid that illegals are on. And the other point is the ACA, which is known as Obamacare, is affordable insurance. What happens is they pool all these insurance plans together, and based on your income, the government gives you a subsidy so you can afford to buy insurance. So it's private insurance, but you get a subsidy based on your income. And it's very expensive, and the Republicans want to get rid of that subsidy. Now, concerning the Medicaid issue, the Democrats are technically right, if you're going to be pedantic about it. On federal Medicaid, illegals are not allowed to apply for a Medicaid and have a Medicaid card or anything like that. But still, Medicaid does pay for illegals, because what happens is illegals, they show up at the hospital room because, let's say, someone has the flu. By law, the hospital has to care for these people. That costs money. The hospital eats the cost, and the hospital gets refunded for these costs that aren't paid by Medicaid. So Medicaid does fund illegals, just in a roundabout way, not directly. And that needs to stop. So if illegals show up at a emergency room, again, if it's a life-saving thing, I have no troubles. Humanitarians save their life, but right away I should be called and they should all immediately be deported right away. They should be deported. Hey, you got them, easy, right? So they should be rounded up at the hospital if they're there. That I would support that. Now, the Obamacare thing, or the Affordable Care Act, that unfortunately is something that if the Republicans do not support, they're going to lose a lot of popularity. Healthcare now is pretty much unaffordable in this country. So is insurance. The average person cannot afford insurance unless you are employed by a company that provides it. Otherwise, most people can't afford it. So this will cause a huge crisis. And the root issue is healthcare is too expensive. And years ago, Donald Trump, bless his heart, said, oh no, we want to get rid of Obamacare. It's too expensive. And Obamacare is too expensive, and it didn't solve the root problem. But Trump said, oh, we have another plan that's even better. But like typical Trump, he says a lot of things, but doesn't follow through, and nothing was followed through. So the health care costs, that issue still hasn't been addressed. I think Trump has tried to address some of the pharmaceutical things. We'll see if drug prices come down. But the major problem with medical care and why it's so expensive, the administrative costs, having all the lawyers and lawsuits, it needs massive reform. And that's something I think Trump should really look at seriously. And it's not a good political position to be giving Israel endless money, maybe preparing another war for Israel against Iran, funding Ukraine still, because we still are. We play a little game that, oh no, we're not giving weapons. NATO's got to buy the weapons from us, and then NATO can give them to Ukraine. But we are part of NATO. We fund like 70% of NATO. So it's sort of silly, right? It's just a game, and that's not going to be popular. So we got to cut out all that before we start cutting healthcare to American citizens. And so I recommend that the GOP should come up with a compromise. I think this would be very politically popular, saying, okay, we know we got to fix healthcare, but as a Band-Aid, we're going to continue to subsidize Obamacare because so many Americans depend on it. And then we're going to look at the root causes of why healthcare is so expensive, and we're going to do drastic reforms. But we're going to keep the ACA Act. However, in exchange for that, we want to explicitly not provide healthcare for illegals. And again, if we're humanitarian, so if someone is about to die, we will save them, but then we'll call ICE and we'll send them back to their homeland. And that would be extremely popular, and not only with this base, but with a lot of people. So we will see what happens with that, but both sides seem to be dug in. All right. On the final thing that came out today, I guess someone named Bad Bunny, I never heard of the guy, but he's playing at the Super Bowl halftime show. And the Super Bowl in America has become an event bigger than just people that like football. For years, at least since the 80s or 90s, people had Super Bowl parties. A lot of times women that have no interest in football would be interested in hosting parties. And a lot of times women like to watch the commercials, and they like to watch the halftime show because there was always a good halftime show. And now for the halftime show, they're having this guy from Puerto Rico that doesn't really like America. And so Turning Point USA, they are doing an alternative to the halftime show at the Super Bowl called the All-American Halftime. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but they're going to have a lineup. I don't know if it probably won't be on TV. You'll probably have to stream it, but most people have access to the internet now. So I support this. This is a good idea. This is, instead of just cursing the darkness, literally, Bad Bunny, why don't you shine a light, provide an alternative? So this way people can watch the Super Bowl, then at halftime, instead of watching Bad Bunny and his anti-American spiel. He's Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico should not be part of America. We should set them free. I'm sure they'll do great without white supremacy. So just let Puerto Rico go independent. But if you don't want to watch that, I think it's mostly going to be in Spanish too. Watch the TPUSA halftime show, which will be for real Americans in English. And this is the way to do it. And this got the left all seething because of providing an option. But I think this is a good thing. So hopefully people will turn into Turning Point USA and watch some good entertainment for halftime instead of seeing some Puerto Rican jabbering in Spanish about how America sucks or whatever. So guys, great to have you again. Back to our news updates for the day. And be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.